don't have anyone to tell this to, and it's eating me alive. Even sharing it here feels risky, but I need to get it out of my head before it consumes me entirely. It's one of those situations that sounds rather unbelievable, almost like something out of a soap opera. But I swear it happened, and I'm still trying to figure out just how to live with it. 2 years ago, I was 20 years old and working as a personal trainer at a gym. It was a decent gig for someone attending community college. I was making good money, staying in shape, and meeting some interesting people. One day, this woman started coming in regularly. She was in her mid-40s, but she had this energy about her that made her seem much younger. She was the kind of person who turned heads without even trying, polished, confident, and effortlessly attractive. I remember thinking at the time that she couldn't possibly be over 30. We struck up conversations during our sessions, and she quickly made it clear that she was interested in me. At first, I thought she was just being friendly, but then she started lingering after her workout, asking personal questions and complimenting me in ways that felt a little intense. Eventually, she invited me out for dinner. I wasn't naive. I knew what she was implying. And I won't lie, I was flattered. A woman like that wanting to spend time with me. It was exciting, even though I knew it probably wouldn't lead anywhere in the long term. Well, one thing led to another, and we hooked up. It wasn't just once either. It happened a handful of times over the next few months. She was intoxicating, magnetic in a way I'd never experienced before. But then, out of nowhere, she up and ended things. She said it wasn't right for someone her age to be with someone as young as me. She left the gym, and just like that, it was over. I moved on, chalking it up as a weird, fleeting chapter in my life. But I also have to underscore fun. Fast forward to now. I've been with my girlfriend for just under a year, and she's amazing. She's smart, funny, and kind. The kind of person who lights up a room just by being in it. I honestly feel like I hit the jackpot with her. Well, a couple of months ago, she invited me to meet her family for the very first time, and I was nervous about it, but still excited. Meeting parents is a big deal, and of course, I wanted to make a good impression. We pulled up to her parents' house, and something about it felt eerily familiar. At first, I couldn't place it, but as we walked to the front door, it hit me like a freight train. I'd been there before. This was the house where I'd hooked up with that woman from the gym. My stomach dropped. I thought maybe I was wrong, maybe it's just a similar looking house. But that's when the door opened and her mum stepped out. I almost collapsed right there on the porch. It was her. I tried to play it cool, but I could tell from her face that she recognized me too. She froze for half a beat, her smile faltering just enough for me to notice before she slightly recovered. Then her husband came to the door, completely oblivious to the tension just hanging in the air. He greeted me warmly, invited me in, and started asking me about myself. The whole time, though, I felt as if I was going to throw up in my lap. Dinner that night was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything but her mom. Every time she looked at me, I felt like I was going to crack under the weight of the secret that we were now sharing. I kept thinking about her husband sitting right there, totally unaware, and my girlfriend. How could I look her in the eye knowing what I knew? A few days later, it seems like her mum dug up my phone number. She didn't waste any time getting to the point when she messaged me. She said that I could never, ever tell anyone what had happened between us. She said that if the truth came out, it would destroy her family and my relationship. According to her, my girlfriend would hate me forever for being the one to ruin her parents' marriage. She made it clear that she wasn't asking. She was telling me to stay silent. And honestly, what choice do I have? I wasn't going to be the one to drop that bombshell. I'd already been carrying the guilt of what we did, but now it felt 10 times heavier. It wasn't just my mistake anymore. It was a secret that could tear apart the lives of people I cared about. Then came Thanksgiving. My girlfriend invited me to spend it with her family, and I couldn't think of a good excuse not to go. My family lives 1,000 miles away, so staying in town made sense. But the thought of sitting at that dinner table with her mom, her dad, and my girlfriend, all pretending everything was normal, gave me a cold sweat. Thanksgiving was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd expected. Her mum avoided looking at me most of the time, but there were moments, fleeting glances, awkward pauses, that reminded me that she hadn't forgotten. Her dad, of course, was completely oblivious, cracking jokes and sharing stories, while her mum smiled and nodded along. My girlfriend was just happy to have us all together, and that made this even worse. I felt like a fraud sitting there with this huge lie just hanging above my head. The thing is, I don't know what to do. I love my girlfriend, but the secret is suffocating me. Every time I look at her, I feel as if I'm betraying her, and every time I see her mum, I feel the weight of what we did pressing down on me. I know her mum wants to pretend it never happened, but I can't erase it from my mind. I keep thinking about what would happen if this truth ever came out. What would the damage be? Would anyone believe me if I told them her mum was the one who pursued me? Probably not. And it doesn't matter though, because I'll never say anything. I can't. This is the kind of thing that sticks with you, the kind of situation that has the potential to reshape your entire life. I didn't ask for any of this, yet here I am, stuck in the middle of a secret I never wanted to keep. Maybe writing this out will help, but honestly, I don't think anything can make this better. It's just something I have to live with. And while it may not happen today, tomorrow, or even next week, if this ever were to come out, I believe I'm utterly fucked. Before we dive into the next story, if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to stay updated with our upcoming confession stories. Your support means the world to us, so please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. I've never really spoken about this to anyone, not to my closest friends, not to my family, not even to my dad. It's one of those memories I've carried around like a locked box in my mind, buried so deep, I almost convinced myself that it wasn't real. For the longest time, I thought it was just some kind of twisted dream, something out of the overactive imagination of a child. But one offhanded comment from my little brother years later shattered that illusion. It happened, and I've never been able to forget. This happened back in the mid-90s. I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and my little brother is a couple years younger than I am. Life was simple back then. We didn't have cell phones or the internet to distract us. Our entertainment came from places like Blockbuster. This particular night started out just like any other weekend evening. My dad decided to take us to pick out some movies, a rare treat that we always looked forward to. I can still picture the glowing yellow and blue sign and the smell of plastic VHS cases mixed with popcorn. My brother and I scoured the aisles excitedly, debating which movies we wanted, while my dad stood off to the side patiently waiting for us to make our choices. After we'd finally made our picks, we piled back into my dad's old car, the kind of car that rattled every time you hit a bump. As we drove towards home, my dad suddenly pulled into a corner store parking lot. This was a snack stop. He parked on the side of the building away from the main entrance and told his kids to stay in the car. It was late, and he probably thought it was safer for us to wait there than to drag us inside. I was never scared with my dad. My father was a strong man, the kind of dad who seemed invincible to a child. He left the engine running, locked the doors, and disappeared into the store. My brother and I sat in the back seat, lost in the excitement of the movies we just rented. I don't exactly remember what we were saying to each other, but I do remember the atmosphere. Warm, safe, and full of that innocent anticipation that only kids can feel. But as my dad came out of the store, just about everything from that night changed. He was carrying a bag of snacks, walking casually toward the car, when a man stepped out of the shadows from behind him. At first, I didn't even notice him. My eyes were glued on my dad when suddenly there was this other figure right next to him. The man moved up close, too close, and it looked like there was something in his hand. I couldn't see it clearly from where I was sitting in the car, but I knew it was some sort of threat. Even as a kid, I could tell this wasn't just some chance, casual encounter. As the shadowy man stepped up behind my dad, I saw my dad freeze for a second. The man was saying something to him, demanding something. My dad took his right hand slowly and deliberately, reaching it towards his pocket. It appeared as if my father was about to hand over his wallet, but that's not what happened. As my dad shifted, he threw the fastest elbow I've ever seen directly into the man's face. It must have landed flush, because it sent the guy pretty much straight to the pavement. And while that should have been that, it wasn't over. The man scrambled back to his feet, and what he had in his hand was now in clear view: a knife. I remember it glinted in the dull parking lot light, and it sent a jolt of fear straight through my entire body. My dad took a step back, holding his ground, prepared for whatever fight was coming his way. The man lunged at my dad, swinging wildly. My dad sidestepped it, grabbed his arm, and wrestled the knife away with a strength I didn't know he had. And then, without hesitation, he turned the knife back on the man. My father drove that knife deep into him. The blade went all the way in, and the man let out this sound that I can still hear today. It wasn't a scream exactly, more like a groan mixed with a gasp, raw and from the farthest depths of one's gut. He collapsed onto the ground, clutching his side and writhing in pain. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My brother was silent right there beside me, his eyes wide with terror. All I could do was watch as my dad stared down at the man for a split second before he turned and ran to the car. He somehow still had the bag of snacks. He threw those into the passenger seat before he slammed the door shut and sped off without a word. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than 30 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. The drive home was absolutely quiet. My dad didn't say a word, and neither did we. I remember staring at his hands on the steering wheel, noticing how tightly he was gripping it. His knuckles were white, and there was a tremble in his fingers that I'd never seen before. My brother and I didn't ask any questions. We didn't need to. We both knew something terrible had just happened. For years, I convinced myself that it wasn't real. I told myself it was a dream or some warped memory that my mind had fabricated. I never brought it up to my dad, and he never mentioned it either. Life went on as if nothing had happened, but every so often, late at night, this is something that I would think about. I'd hear that horrible groan in my head, see the flash of the knife, feel the weight of that silence in the car afterward. It wasn't until years later that my brother casually mentioned it. We were reminiscing about our childhood when he suddenly said, verbatim, "Hey, do you remember that night Dad stabbed that guy outside the store?" My stomach twisted itself into a knot. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't something I'd imagined. It had happened exactly as I remembered it. We've never spoken about it since, and neither of us has dared to ask our dad about it. I don't know what happened to the man that he stabbed. I don't know if someone found him on the ground and called for help. I don't know if he survived or if he bled out all alone in that parking lot. I'll likely never know. My dad isn't the kind of man who'd share those details, and I don't think I'd want to hear them. What sticks with me most is the image of my dad in those moments. The calm, collective way he fought off the attacker. The split-second decision to turn the knife back on him. He didn't hesitate. He did what he had to do to protect himself and us. But I wonder if it weighs on him the way it weighs on me. Does he think about it late at night? Does he hear that groan in his head the same way that I do? I'll never forget that night. It's burned into my memory. And yet we've all carried on as if it never happened. Maybe that's the only way to cope with something like this, to bury it deep and hope it stays there. But for me, it never really has. Let me start by saying, I know this isn't exactly something to be proud of. It's not something I'd share with a friend or bring up in casual conversation. But here I am, spilling my guts to a bunch of strange people on the internet. Maybe it's the guilt eating away at me. Or maybe deep down I want someone to tell me I'm justified. Either way, this is what's happening. I work for a small company, tight-knit and family-like in the worst ways imaginable. You'd think a smaller company might mean a more laid-back atmosphere, but not here. My boss, Greg, is the type of person who gets off on having power. He micromanages, snaps at employees for the smallest mistakes, and never misses a chance to make someone feel stupid. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job, he'll find something to criticize. If you come in early, you're sucking up. If you leave on time, you're lazy. I think you get the picture. The worst part, Greg's wife, Emily, works at the same company. She's in a different department, so we don't interact much, but we all know her. She's charming, approachable, and honestly way out of Greg's league. It's almost a running joke among employees. How did someone like Greg land Emily? It's a mystery, and not the fun kind. I always figured she saw a softer side of him that we didn't get to see, some redeeming quality buried deep down inside. That illusion shattered about 6 months ago. Greg had just finished chewing me out over a client email I'd sent, a perfectly polite, professional email, mind you. Apparently, I hadn't CC'd him fast enough for his liking. He made this whole scene in the office, loud enough for everyone to hear. It wasn't the first time he'd done something like that, but for some reason, that day, it hit differently. I felt humiliated and angry and honestly, done with this crap. And it was around that time that I started noticing things. Call it pettiness or curiosity. But I began paying attention to little details, the way that he interacted with his wife around the office, how he wasn't just a jerk to us, he was a jerk to her too. Well, fast forward to a random Friday evening. I was scrolling through Snapchat, half watching some terrible movie on Netflix, when Emily's name popped up as a recommended friend. I stared at her name for a moment, and an idea popped into my head. A petty, impulsive, stupid idea. I grabbed my old burner Snapchat account, the one I'd set up years ago for, well, let's say personal reasons. I copied her username and sent her a friend request. I didn't expect her to add me back so quickly, but within an hour, she had. My profile had some generic selfies of a guy who wasn't me, just some random pictures I pulled from the depths of the internet. Harmless, right? Let's just see where this might go. Our first exchange was casual. I introduced myself as Ryan, and I claimed I was a contractor, new to town. Emily responded warmly, polite, interested, nothing quite out of the ordinary. But over the next few days, the tone of our conversation started to shift. She opened up about her life, about how lonely she felt sometimes, and she never once mentioned Greg. I didn't push, but I didn't have to. It wasn't long before she told me she was single. Single? I chuckled when I read that. I didn't know whether to feel bad for her or infuriated on Greg's behalf. Then the pictures started. At first, it was just innocent selfies. Her smiling, her at Starbucks, that kind of thing. But soon they became more revealing. I won't go into graphic detail, but let's just say they were the kind of photos you wouldn't want your spouse to find. I felt like I'd crossed some invisible line. This wasn't just petty revenge anymore. It was something bordering on dark. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel guilty. Emily seemed nice, at least on the surface. But then again, so did Greg when he hired me. The longer I kept up with the conversation, the more tangled up I got in it. I kept telling myself I could stop any time, but I didn't. The thrill of it, the power dynamic flipping, the satisfaction of knowing Greg wasn't as untouchable as he thought, was just too much to resist. I imagined what it would feel like to let it all come crashing down, printing the screenshots, slipping them into an envelope, and leaving it on Greg's desk. But I didn't do that, not yet. The truth is, I don't know what I want to do. On one hand, I feel like I'm just as bad as Greg if I keep this up. And on the other hand, doesn't he deserve to know? Doesn't Emily deserve some kind of consequence for lying? I've gone back and forth so many times that I've lost count. The holidays are coming up, and my company is hosting a little party the week before Christmas. Greg and Emily will both be there, smiling and pretending their lives are perfect. And me, I'll be there too, holding on to the secret, wondering what may be the perfect time to let it all out. I'm not proud of any of this, but damn, it's hard to feel bad when you've spent years under the thumb of someone like Greg. Maybe that makes me a bad person, or maybe it just makes me human. Either way, I don't think I can ever look at him or his wife the same way again.